back again with another story on instant Kisse. Today's prompt word is filter coffee, suggested by Punit Gandhi. It was just another day in lockdown. Arun had gone down to get groceries from his building ka kirane ka dukan. Of course, he had the mask on and everything. While he was comparing two different brands of coffee powder, that's when he noticed her looking at him. Perhaps she was amused by how long he was taking on something as basic as coffee. He tried to explain to her through gestures, he couldn't really talk because of the mask, that this particular brand would make for much better filter coffee. Of course, all of this in dumb charades was kind of difficult, and he had no idea whether she understood what he was saying or whether she just thought he was an idiot. But then he saw her eyes smiling and felt reassured. In fact, he felt so emboldened that later on, when they were in the lift going up together, he actually asked her, "Would you like to come home sometime for filter coffee?" She looked at him. For a moment, he was a little unnerved. Did she think that he was some kind of lusty lech trying to get lucky during lockdown? But then, thankfully, she didn't say anything that suggested that. She just smiled and said, "Sure." Of course, Arun had no idea if she actually meant it or if she was just being polite. He hardly knew this woman. He'd seen a couple of times in the building and a few times running in the park, and he had been impressed by her speed and her athletic body. But he never thought that they would actually have a conversation or that she would ever come over for coffee. But she did. And one cup led to another and yet another, because they found they had a lot in common. From Star Wars to Stephen King, from Floyd to Hemant Kumar, chess to Scrabble. The chats increased. They started sharing recommendations of what to read and what to watch. Recipes were exchanged of workouts at home and interesting things to make for dinner. Even the conversation shifted from what places would deliver what essential item the other lacked to actually far more intimate things. She found out that he was in the middle of an acrimonious divorce, fighting tooth and nail to be allowed to spend time with his daughter. In her case, her husband was in another town spending time with his ailing father. But even when they cohabited, it was perfunctory and functional. Perhaps that's why her husband hadn't insisted on her accompanying him, and she hadn't asked. Before they could even plan it, a lockdown love affair began. Of course, they took precautions because they didn't want to become the talk of the society. So they exchanged notes and books, but resisted the temptation to actually read together. Him propped up on the bed, she lying on his lap. In fact, they did it only once. They also resisted the temptation to watch movies cuddled together. They did that only a couple of times late at night when they were sure that the neighbors' lights were off. And when they made love, they were careful to keep the sound effects to the minimum. But from the very beginning, they both knew that this was not a long-term thing, just as long as the lockdown existed. But still, each time the lockdown got extended, they both felt a sense of relief. Arun would say it, she would only smile, but he knew she felt it too. And then when the end came closer, they were the only two hoping that the lockdown would get extended. Just one last time, if only. But of course it didn't happen. The last night, Arun couldn't stop himself from saying, "I know we agreed, but perhaps, you could." She was like, "Could what? Get a divorce? Marry you?" "We could. I'm scared that we'll end up just like my husband and me, living together as perfect strangers. Or worse, like your wife and you. And I wouldn't want that. This has been the most beautiful, precious time of my life. And I want to remember it always just like that." He knew she was right, so though his heart broke, he didn't protest. So they ate, drank, danced their last dance. And that night when they made love, she allowed herself to moan out loud, She knew the opportunity would never come again. And then they danced out of each other's lives. He still saw her sometimes in the garden, but he never ran close to her. And when they came across each other in the grocery shop, they nodded to each other, but never asked each other whether they wanted to have coffee. Hope you like this story. I'll be back again with another one. Till then, keep sending me prompt words, keep sharing my stories. Full details on how to do that coming up after this. Till next time, sunshine in your day.